Hi, I'm José Diaz, Chief Curator of the Andy Warhol Museum. We're here today to see Andy Warhol Revelation on view at the Speed Art Museum from July 5th to November 29th. We find ourselves in the heart of the exhibition. Behind me, you can see Andy Warhol's Pink Last Supper from 1986. This is one of over 100 artworks depicting the narrative of the Last Supper. Andy Warhol was commissioned in 1984 to create a body of work of the Last Supper, the original made by Leonardo da Vinci. Warhol had a skill of taking the sacred and making it secular, and this section, including the one next to it in the exhibition, talks about Warhol choosing sacred imagery but then making it for the masses. The Last Supper, for example, is part of our collective conscious. We all know what it is, whether we're Catholic or not. And within this section, we see Warhol visiting the Renaissance masters. The Renaissance masters, in my opinion, were the first rock star artists. We know their names, we know who their patrons were, and we still enjoy their artwork. Take, for example, the Mona Lisa. The Mona Lisa came to the United States for the first and only time in 1962. It went to Washington, D.C., and then to the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City. Jackie Kennedy was involved in negotiating the arrangement, and Andy Warhol actually saw the painting at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. In fact, he took the brochure, and from that brochure, he made a silkscreen and made his earliest versions of the Mona Lisa. The Mona Lisa and the Last Supper are examples of early works, Renaissance works, that modern and contemporary artists have used in their own creations, whether it's for comical purposes or whether making commentary that's specific to their own work. The Renaissance artists were like Andy. They were gravitating towards new technologies and to different disciplines. Andy Warhol, for example, he wasn't just a painter, he was a filmmaker, he was an author. In fact, he was even signed with a modeling agency in the 1980s. Andy Warhol also was not defined by medium. He silkscreened, he illustrated, he took photography. In fact, he recorded his whole daily surroundings with audio recordings and cameras. And like the Renaissance artists, he was interested in new technologies. Warhol's own studio, which we call the factory, was a lively place. But not only that, Warhol ran his studio, like the studios of the Renaissance artists. It was a place to congregate, but also a place to make work. This section also includes a Raphael Madonna. This is Warhol's version. The original painting has been transformed, just like the Last Supper and the Mona Lisa, in a very Warholian pop way. You might recognize the painting, but Warhol's added sort of a painterly gestural quality to it and added a price tag at the very top left hand. This section of the exhibition also includes other takes on Renaissance masters. For example, the Last Supper was made by Leonardo da Vinci, as was another painting in the show, the Annunciation. Warhol included this in a series called Details of Renaissance Paintings. It's a series from the 1980s where Warhol takes historically well-known works, and then he crops the image the way you would do on your phone and isolates it to the most important moment. In the Annunciation, in Andy Warhol's version, he crops it out so all you can tell is that there's a hand on one side and a hand on the other, and a landscape in the middle. The hand on one side is the hand of the angel Gabriel, telling the Virgin Mary, the other hand, that she's about to give birth to the Son of God. It was a well-known painting at its time, but it's quite obscure today. Thanks for watching. Come see Andy Warhol Revelation at the Speed Art Museum on view through November 29th.